Welcome to our channel, Million Dollars Made Easy. On this channel, we love to run numbers for people, and what we do is use the actual historical returns for the S&P 500 for the last 100 years, which includes the Depression years. We project ahead what similar returns might do for in the future. They won't be identical, and the resulting numbers are simply a possible range of what may happen in the future. I'm not a financial advisor, I'm just a numbers guy. I will run numbers for you, and I've got this request. Somebody said that let me read it here. Can I retire at 61 with $550,000 saved after being laid off? And it gives the amounts he and his wife are getting it with Social Security. So let's go enter in the numbers, realizing all we're doing is looking at what would have happened if you would have done this over the last 100 years and projecting ahead if the same kind of returns. We don't believe they're going to be better or any worse than probably what's happened in the last 100 years. They're probably not going to be any worse than the Depression years or the year 2000, and they probably aren't going to be better than the 80s and the 90s and the 20 teens and so on. So what we do is just run the numbers. So again, he says he's 61, has 550,000. 550,000. We're going to do a 3% COLA. We're going to do a standard 60-40 split. In other words, 60% staying in the S&P 500, 40% going over to some bucket over here, cash reserve account. We can change any of these numbers. We can change the COLA. We can change the asset allocation. But interesting enough, he says the Social Security, he's going to get 2,035. His spouse is going to get 651. And so I added those up. That's 2696. And he's going to be taking that, if he's 61 and he starts staying at age 62, he's going to be taking that in the second year. Now let me show you what happens if you don't. Well, first of all, I'm going to leave that blank for just a second just to show you. And let's say you need, again, this is a key question they need to ask is, what are your expected expenses? I'm going to run it at 4,500, which would be 54,000 a year going up by 3% a year. Now, if they didn't have Social Security, that'd be a 9.82% withdrawal rate. And you can see it if we had returns like the year 2000. Again, that was a rare decade, but if we had returns like that, it'd be out of money in 9 years. But they do get Social Security. I want to show you this 9.82 is way past the 4% rule. So that's not going to work too well. But they do have Social Security coming in, but they won't be able to take that till the second year, earliest to be age 62. So it'd be 4,500 the first year, and then when this 2696 kicks in, then it'd be 1804 coming out of their nest egg. You can see right there, the year 2000, it looked a lot better with the money being down to 87,000 after 20 years, getting a little bit iffy when they'd be 82 years old, but a lot better off than not having Social Security. But let's go ahead and update this. Because remember, this is one of the problem decades. This is one of the worst case scenarios. If we just go one more year later, then you have 163,000 after 20 years. If you had 2 down years, if you just had 1 down year, then you'd have 392,000 after 20 years. If we go down here to 2008, which was also a problem year, usually if you have just 1 down year, numbers work out quite well. Here we obviously haven't had 20 years since the year 2008, but you'd have almost what you started with after 15 years. But what we're going to do is run it for every single year and see how the numbers might work out for this couple. Again, this question is, can I retire at 61 with 550,000 saved after being laid off? And then he gives us Social Security amount, so we've got him added up here. If he's 61, he can start this in the second year when he's 62. It looks like the only time he'd have a problem in the last 100 years, given every one of these scenarios, the worst case scenario you're going to find is 1929 and 1930. You can see them highlighted here in red. If we use the numbers from 1929, again, none of the returns are going to be identical, but they can sure give us an idea. So in one of the worst case, actually the worst case scenario in the last 100 years, with these kind of returns going down through here, your money would last 20 years in 1929. You'd be down to $10,000. 1930 numbers, right here it's showing you running out of money just at 20 years. If you do 1930, you're running out of money in 24 years. So those are the only 2 scenarios. The rest of them, if I show you the graph right here, the 20-year graph, this is what you have after 20 years. The only time you have a problem was Depression years. The year 2000, you're getting kind of low, but look at all these other ones where you'd have, this is 500,000, this is a million. You can see the actual numbers going down through here. This is what you'd have after 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years, given all the different possible years that we've had in the last 100 years. So you can see almost in every case. But again, I'm just running at 4,500. They need to figure out when or how much money they think they need, and if they find out they're running out of money, say they need 5,000 a month, they think they need. That's going to change this number. Right now, 0% of the time you're not out of money. You're getting really low in the year 1929 and 1930. But if we change this to 5,000 a month, starting out, then you've got 7% of the time you're running out of money. And again, in 20 years, in the last 100 years, the graph still looks really favorable. You got the Depression years and you got the 2000s. Those are the ones we always run into because they were bad decades. The 1930s and the 2000s were bad decades. The other decades would be just fine. Even the 1970s, where you had 2 down years and another down year, the 1970 would still be okay. Right here, it's getting a little bit low along in there, but that's the kind of money. But it all depends on what they think their expected expenses are. What else could they do differently? They could possibly change their asset allocation. But I don't think that changes much. Let's just see how that changes with the year. Let's not go with 1929, 19. Let's go back to something more recent, the year 2000. That's what we do this channel, run all kinds of different numbers. So right now you're running out of money in 16 years given this scenario. We go to 2% COLA. I want you to see if this changes at all. 2% COLA? Nope. 1% COLA? Nope. It just looks like it's problematic because you had these 3 down year. They call that sequence of returns risk. Your money would last a little bit longer. Yes, 2%. Instead of 16 years, a 2% COLA. It didn't change any either. 1% COLA, 18 years. So again, that was so problematic. We could change your asset allocation. You want to change it to 50-50. Instead of 51,000 after 15 years, you're still running out of money in 16 years. How about a 60-40? Money still running out in 6. So asset allocation really isn't going to help you when you have your initial down years, 3 down years. Again, they won't duplicate this in any way. But if you happen to start out with 3 down years and you have any kinds of returns like that, you could have a problem with 5,000 a month. You go back to 4,500, then you've got money left after 20 years with a 60-40 split. What do we have at 40? Looks like 87,000 after 20 years. Again, it's getting kind of low because of these 3 down years. But how often did that happen, folks? Again, look at the graph. During the Depression years and around the year 2000, but all these other times you'd be just fine, to the point that only 7% of the time would you be running into any kind of problems after 20 years. Using these kind of numbers because of Social Security, and you have a 60-40 split and 4,500. You need to see what shape you're in, and what kind of expenses you're expected to have going forward, and change these accordingly if you need to. Maybe you need to go down to 4250. Maybe you need to cut your COLA out. Maybe you need to change your asset allocation. But this gives you a rough idea that most of the time you're going to be just fine if you retired right now and started Social Security next year. Again, this person's 61 years old. But that's what we do on this channel. We run numbers for them and give them some kind of idea of what they might have in the future. Please consider subscribing to this channel. Please share the channel, comment, like these videos. Let people know there's a channel out there that will run numbers to give them some kind of idea, especially in a situation like this. Okay, what do I do? I've been laid off at age 61. What's my prospects here? Do I have enough? Again, it comes down to what do you think your expected expenses are? Thanks for watching.